Previously on the Sugar Baby Confessionals.
The biggest news on the horizon is that favorite person has unfortunately really been struggling with my relationship with the Brit.
Right.
And he has asked me for a little bit of space. So I've offered to take a break from seeing the Brit, but I'm in love with the Brit. We're gonna go see a therapist.
I could see myself as a career sugar baby if I met somebody that I really like.
So tell me, what is your dating landscape like right now?
Bleak and sad and terrible. I'm disillusioned with men in general.
Delusions of grandeur are inherent in youth. It's the nightmare of tangled bedsheets, the result of reckless actions that haunts one in old age. I'm quoting the inimitable poet and fashion maven Bette O'Callaghan here. That marvelous mini-poem is her review of the podcast. But will Ruby and Madeline look back with regret on their actions as sugar babies? There was a certain ennui creeping into their voices when last I spoke to them. Madeline, in particular, seems to be feeling jaundiced about the men she's encountered over the past 7 months. And is Ruby deluding herself that she can make it work with both the Brit and FP? When she revealed that FP is really struggling with her burgeoning feelings for the Brit, it worried me deeply, but they're doing their best to sort through these complex feelings by visiting a therapist. This week, I'm catching up with Ruby to get a general sense of where she is at the moment, some weeks from our last conversation. I wonder if she's having any luck smoothing out the bedsheets of her relationships.
Hi, Esty, how are you?
I'm good. We've had about a month's break in between the last time we called.
I've missed you.
Yeah, me too. I know that a lot has been happening with you as well. And so if you can catch me up on what's been happening with you and Brit.
Well, listen, generally, I do continue to see the Brit once a week. Every once in a while, it's actually more than that because there are times when he goes away. Like, he travels quite a bit. So if he's away, for a couple of weeks, a few weeks, whatever, we try to schedule makeup dates as well, which is always quite cool. I have to say, I really enjoy seeing him more than once a week. And things have really developed between the two of us. Something that surprises me and I do feel slightly guilty about, but I don't know, I'm just trying to roll with it, is the fact that I've developed very deep... Ooh, can you hear that?
Yeah. Shame.
Oh no. I'm hoping he'll stop soon. I've developed very kind of significant feelings for him. And I've continued to be completely honest with favorite person about it. So nothing that I would say to you about the situation is, would be surprising to him. He knows everything. So I have kind of shifted my focus a little bit. I'm not really into being a sugar baby anymore. And I feel as if this has all happened in my life because it's kind of revealing to me that I am a polyamorous person in the true sense of that word, not just someone who's interested in swinging or hot wifing or any of the other, perhaps versions of polyamory that is focused more on the sexual aspect of it as
Right.
opposed to a romantic connection. And that surprised me a little bit because, it wasn't the intention. It wasn't what I was expecting. I've never kind of functioned like that before. So, yeah, favorite person is having it. The person you're hearing in the background right now is my youngest child, who is just reaching that age in which he wants to throw major tantrums anytime he doesn't get his exact way. So that's what that screaming is. I'm completely unfazed by this screaming. That is just a tantrum. So have no fear. He's not being tortured.
On the Richter scale of child tantrums, that's like a 2.5.
Yeah, something like that.
I checked that Ruby is really okay to continue recording. She says she is.
Do you think it's from being with the Brits specifically? So if you had continued with the sugar baby thing and perhaps carried on meeting people, like Mankini and others, you might not have come to this realization.
Yeah, I don't think I would have. It's him. I am the kind of person who typically can have a sexual relationship with someone and not develop that kind of emotional attachment. I'll like the person, but I won't fall in love with them. I have fallen in love with him.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a really huge deal.
How does favorite person feel about this?
Well, he's not happy about it. He's quite scared, feels very threatened, which I suppose is understandable. Yeah, I mean, he's also in pain. This is something that pains him, which really, really sucks for both of us. I never want to do anything that brings him pain. So it's been difficult. It's something that we have been talking about a lot to try and work through.
When was the first time you came to this realization that this was something more, you couldn't put your feelings aside anymore?
There was a certain point at which favorite person was starting to feel uncomfortable about the amount of time that I wanted to spend with the Brit, or the amount of time that I was, let's say, texting him or something. Like, obviously, he was on my mind a lot, which is not something that is typical for me. And so favorite person started creating all of these rules around my behavior. In fact, I think the last time we spoke to each other, I just mentioned that to you.
Yeah.
And how I wasn't liking it. I started to feel as if he was trying to control me, which is not something I function well under at all. And it occurred to me that the reason he was doing that is because he was feeling threatened and feeling scared. And that's not a good thing. That's not a good place to be.
It's at this point that Ruby's son's screams really start to take on a symbolic resonance. We hear him again, and Ruby stops to go and comfort him. But it's as though FP's inner child is howling at us in the background. Not a comfortable thought.
So, favorite person asked me if we could take a break from the whole thing. Sugar daddy, hot wifing, polyamory, or whatever you want to call it. And I said that I couldn't do that. That was a really emotional conversation. He asked me, and I asked him if I could have a little while to think about it. So it was probably about a week that I just thought and I thought and I thought. And the answer that I came up with is, if I just denied what I was feeling, it'd be tantamount to kind of lying to myself. And I didn't want to do that. So even though it's really scary, what I've asked from favorite person, it's scary for both of us. And I think it does carry quite a huge amount of risk. I feel like if we continue to talk to each other and communicate, and if what he tells me is true, that he loves me and he really wants to be with me and he wants to work things out. I mean, that's exactly how I feel. So, and I know that I'm telling the truth about that. So if I believe that favorite person is telling the truth about that, then I'm really hopeful. Then I feel like somehow we can figure out a way to make this work.
On the day the wind stands still, who will hold my hand? Will there be a grieving man who hammers down the planks? On the day the wind stands still, who will hold my hand? Will there be a grieving man who hammers down?
I don't know if in the long run it'll work for the Brit, because I have a lot of responsibilities and certain people are priorities in my life. That's not going to change. So I don't know how long he's going to want to stick around in the picture, but I've been really honest with him about everything as well. So we'll see.
How does he feel about you?
He feels the same, actually. He's told me that he loves me. Yeah.
So who said that first? How, was it a mutual kind of realization?
Yeah, I said it first, and it just kind of, it was a weird moment. I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't something that I had premeditated on. It just kind of burst out of me one evening when we were in the throes of passion. Yeah, he didn't say anything, but he hugged me really, really close. It felt like his whole body was smiling against me, so I took that as a good sign. And I didn't say anything else for a long time about it. And then one day he said it to me.
Did you foresee this happening in any
No.
way?
No, definitely not. In fact, it still really kind of shocks the hell out of me. It's made me question, and what I'm about to tell you is going to sound harsh, but I have said this to favorite person. Everything about my life. Have I really been happy with favorite person? Have I felt fulfilled in our marriage together? Have I been deluding myself this whole time? Like, how can you be truly happy with your partner and love them and want to be with them?
That's a profoundly disturbing thing to go through.
Yeah, to say that I've been stressed out is probably an understatement. The good news is that I actually feel quite happy. I know that sounds a bit strange considering the fact that I just said I'm really stressed about this stuff, but it's true. And not just the time that I get to spend with the Brit. I continue to be really happy with favorite person, spending time with favorite person. That's why when I started reading up about polyamory, I thought like, oh shit, wow, there you go. You know, this is me. Here I am. I'm one of the people that they're describing here.
Try and explain it if you can.
Okay, well, polyamory, it's having romantic relationships with more than one person at a time where everyone in the scenario knows what's going on and is consensual with what's going on. So this is absolutely positively not about cheating on anybody. And it could be a scenario in which there's one person in the middle who's called the pivot. So at the moment, I would be the pivot because I have two relationships, one with favorite person and one with the Brit. So I'm kind of in the middle. I'm that pivot person. But I mean, there are all sorts of crazy configurations out there where people get into triads, where all three people are in a committed relationship with each other and, you know, romantic with each other. There are quads where all four people are. I mean, on and on and on, you know. It's really interesting to me, actually.
When did you decide that you sort of had to broach the subject with favorite person? You know, because that's quite a game changer for him to get his head around.
Well, I admitted to him very quickly after I had said it to the Brit. I told favorite person about that. You know, it was like the next day or the day after or something when I told the Brit that I loved him. So I feel that I have been treating favorite person very ethically in the sense that I've been very honest the whole way through and always telling him how I feel, what I think, and what I want as it develops, which is kind of the only thing I can do. Deciding to tell him that I didn't want to stop dabbling in this, if you will. As I already mentioned to you, he came to me and he said, listen, I'm feeling really uncomfortable. I just want to put an end to all of this right now. And I asked for some time to think about it. The result that I came to was that if I just went along with what favorite person wanted, just so that he wouldn't feel insecure, then I would be really unhappy and probably resentful and angry. It just I don't know, it just wouldn't feel right to me.
So how did he respond when you came back saying, do you know what, I don't want to stop?
He was calm about it. Certainly he was upset. He told me that wasn't the answer that he was hoping I would give him and that he was really afraid of what this could mean for our marriage and our future together, which I agree with him. That's a completely reasonable stance to take. And then he also told me that he really, really loves me and he wants us to be together. And if that means that we have to figure out a way to accommodate this side of me, then he was willing to work on it.
This is typical of FP. He loves Ruby so much, and it's clear that, despite how hard it is for him, he's willing to bend for her, to change. He really isn't interested in this public airing of his relationship, especially now. He hasn't said no, stop recording, but I myself am starting to wonder, are we heading into territory that is better left alone? When does this project move from being an honest and valuable exploration of the difficulties of maintaining an open relationship? When does it devolve into an exercise in tacky voyeurism? But Ruby and I wanted this to be a true reflection of her experiences, warts and all, not just the good stuff. She's putting herself on the line so people going through similar issues can learn from it. If you are, and you're listening, hopefully this will help you somehow.
He couldn't promise me that it would work, but he told me that if it were that important to me, then he would be willing to try, which I really appreciated. I mean, I was so scared that he was just gonna put his foot down and say, no, I'm leaving you, or you have to be this way, or I'm breaking up with you. And he hasn't done that.
I think that really speaks to how much he does love you, though, because he wants
it
you to be
does.
happy. He is putting your happiness, even though he's in pain. He's saying, I'm willing to help you to have, what you want, but it's obviously quite difficult, I guess, for him. How does he feel about the notion of a polyamorous relationship?
I think it's difficult for him to understand because he's not like that. I think at his core, he would probably be happy to be monogamous. So it's difficult for him. It's really, really difficult for him. And because it's difficult for him, it's difficult for me.
Ruby sounds deflated, perhaps the most that I've ever heard her. All her assurance and joie de vivre seems to have deserted her, which really worries me. I wonder what she's hoping the outcome will be.
So I suppose you've got to find a way, because I can tell that you're in pain as well, because he's in pain. It's not like you're sitting there going, I just want to have my cake and eat it. And, I can feel that you are actually in pain.
No.
About this.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not feeling nonchalant about this in any way. Not in any way. I've thought a lot about just going along with what favorite person would want me to do. I think in a lot of ways that would be the easier thing. So I'm trying to be really brave. I'm trying to be honest. I mean, if something like this could happen to me when I really was happy, that says something. I feel like that's a significant piece of it. I'm an adventurous person, and both favorite person and I enjoy, kind of lots of kinky sex things, whatever. And that's really what the whole sugar baby adventure was supposed to be, just fulfilling a certain kind of fantasy of mine.
Yeah.
So that's how I, in the beginning, foresaw it going, like I would either get off on it or I wouldn't, but it would be fun stories for favorite person and I to play around with together.
Do you think that there's a part of favorite person that's thinking, if you could fall in love with the Brit, could you fall in love with X number of other people?
I haven't really thought about that, to be honest with you. I haven't asked favorite person about it either. I don't know if he's worried about that. And I think that the possibility of that is quite real. I mean, I'm not saying I would want to have 10 different partners, significant others in my life, but if I could love one other person, who's to say I couldn't love one more other person? I don't know. I suppose I'm capable of it. I mean, to me, love is not a zero-sum game. So the fact that I love favorite person and the fact that I have fallen in love with the Brit, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. Those two things don't take away from each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's like holding a candle and you have this other candle in your hand and you reach over and you light the second candle off of the first one. It doesn't damage the first candle that was burning. That light is still being thrown off. It's the candle's still burning, and now all you have is just more light in the room because you have two candles burning. And that's what it feels like in my heart right now.
I ask her what she thinks the Brit feels about her going through such turmoil on the home front. After all, he's been pretty sheltered from all of it.
Caring for the Brit as I do doesn't make me love favorite person any less at all. In fact, in a weird way, I feel like I love him more because he's been so loving towards me and so willing to try something that I know is really difficult for him.
That's a beautiful analogy, and it gives me a very clear idea of how you operate. It's illuminating your soul and everything around you. But for favorite person, it might feel that he's being kind of edged out further and further, like the more people there might be. Like I could see him sort of being able to wrap his mind around the idea of one other person, perhaps, But, if there was this latent fear underneath it all that was like, but what if there's another and another, and I kind of get edged out further and further, and my role in your life becomes smaller and smaller.
And I understand what you're saying, and I follow the logic, but that's following a very negative model, right? Like, so something that I read in this book is that poly people often say love is infinite, but time and attention are not. And that's very true. So I feel like I could love however many people that I meet and feel a connection with. I could love them. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to make them a priority in my life or make the time for them when I have so many other people that I need to spend a significant amount of time with. I mean, my kids, favorite person, at this point now, the Brit. I don't feel like I'm just this open, floating, like, oh, I could fall in love with anyone kind of person. I I don't feel that way at all. I think that there is something.
A love amoeba.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm not a love amoeba. Thank goodness for that. But I mean, especially now, I feel like you can never say never. But the thing is, I really love favorite person. I really love him. I really want to be with him. I still feel completely committed to building our life together and nourishing the life that we have built together. That's really, really important to me, that he feels loved, that he feels my commitment, so on and so forth. So, I mean, while you can never say never, I can't imagine just some kind of free-for-all love amoeba, that wouldn't feel authentic to me.
So what is the plan now?
Well, the plan at the moment is that favorite person has agreed to remove his rules about how I spend my time. So it's up to me now to say when I see the Brit and when I don't, when I'll be at home and when I'm out. I really appreciate that a lot. So that's a very new development. That was as a result of one of the many talks we've had this past week. We were on vacation together for a week and we had a lot of intense conversations each night. That hasn't been put into practice yet. I'm home now. We're back from our vacation, but the Brit is still away, and I won't see him for another week. But I've told him already about the fact that I should be able to see him a little bit more. And what I'm going to try to do is see him during the day when my kids are busy and when favorite person is at work, so that it doesn't take away from my family time that much.
Right, yeah.
And I'll continue to see him once a week in the evening because I really want to, and that's fun for us. I'm hoping that from favorite person's perspective, not that much has changed, except the fact that now that he's said, okay, cool, like your time is your own, you do whatever it is that you want. I hope that that's actually going to help him feel like I want to be here. Because the trap that we were starting to fall into, and the book that I've read, More Than Two, was really good at describing the scenario, is that when you have all these rules around a relationship because of insecurities and fear, the person who is insecure creating the rules, they do that because they're trying to provide security for themselves, but it has this kind of backfiring effect in the sense that if someone is just following a rule of yours, you don't really know, well, do they want to be spending time with me, or are they just doing this because I've created this rule and they've made an agreement to abide by the rule? And if you know what I mean, it's different.
It's like in a more vanilla relationship, wives will often say to husbands or whatever, I need you to do this. Then if they do it, you're like, now, did you do that because I'm asking you? I want you to want to do it. I don't want to have to tell you to do it.
Right. Right. That's exactly right. So I'm hoping that when favorite person sees that, given the opportunity, I'm not going to just drop the life that I have with him and go running off and spend as much time as possible and shirk my responsibilities to be with the Brit. That's not what I want to do. So I'm hoping that over the next, few weeks, few months, whatever, he'll see that, okay, this I can let go of some of these fears.
You have to kind of walk this minefield of favorite person's feelings and insecurities and shore them up and make him feel like it's not going to all come tumbling down.
Well, and I have to do that in a way that gets at the root of the insecurity and annihilates it, as opposed to changing my behavior to enable the insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to do. The two of us talking to each other constantly about what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we want is key. I know over the years, I feel like both of us have developed really good communication skills. And if we didn't have those right now, we would be toast. Like things would have probably fallen apart a while ago instead of feeling like they're getting a little bit better. Like, I have to say, the week that we were away on vacation, it was so wonderful. We got to spend such great quality time together. And even though those talks were difficult because they were painful a bit, at the end of it, I feel so much closer to him and I feel very hopeful about everything.
So he never felt that with his other dates that there was any possibility of a similar thing happening?
So far, no. And I say so far because obviously we still do have an open relationship. And if he meets someone special, which in a really weird way, I'm so hoping that he does, because then he'll understand how I can hold all of this in my heart. I'm sure I'll go through, little moments of jealousy or little wibbles here and there, but I believe in him. I believe in us, and I know how I'm feeling, so I'm sure that he would feel the same way. Why would he want to give everything up just because he has feelings for someone else? That actually doesn't make sense. So, yeah, so we'll see. I don't think he's probably in the right frame of mind at the moment to find someone like that. If we figure out a way to make this work for us going forward, I see that happening. I mean, he's a wonderful person, so I can't imagine that there wouldn't be a plethora of women out there who would fall in love with him.
Sometimes I think, this is more tricky than a normal relationship. But when I think that actually in a lot of normal relationships, the same insecurities apply and cause just as many issues. So it's interesting to have something that is more extreme as a contrast that sort of even still kind of mirrors an experience that someone might be having.
In order to respect the privacy that FP and I have, I don't go into hectic detail in discussing things with the Brit. But I will tell him, obviously, that favorite person and I have had an intense conversation, and this was the end result that affects you. That seems fair to me. How does he feel? Well, I think that he feels a little bit weird and very uncomfortable, and to a certain extent, probably unhappy about the fact that not that he's purposely causing pain, but that just the scenario as it is causing someone pain. He's told me that that's not anything that he ever wants or feels good about. And he's a little bit scared, he's told me, because I don't think this is a scenario that many people expect themselves to get involved in.
Is he still paying you? Or is that something that fell by the wayside?
Yeah, no, he is. He is. It's a really weird dynamic. I don't really want him to anymore. But at the same time, I'm slightly afraid to, like, I feel there's so much that could push things out of balance, and the payment that we get once a month, I mean, it's obviously it feels like found money in a sense. So we've been saving a lot more and being able to do things that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So, I know that favorite person really appreciates being able to especially save more every month, because we're planning on buying a house one day. So, every little bit helps. But it's this really awkward situation. It's like I don't really want to take the money, but I'm afraid to say, hey, don't pay me, because then I think favorite person is going to go, well, wait a minute. Like,
Mm.
at least I'm getting something out of the situation, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So it's a bit awkward. I mean, I wouldn't feel bad about it if the Brit didn't mind, but I think from the very beginning, he hasn't really enjoyed giving me the money,
What would
you
you do
know?
if he said, "Can I start making the payments?"
Well, I would say, of course. I mean, I don't want him to feel coerced into anything, that's for sure. And I'm really looking forward to a day when I can just ask him to stop, but I feel like I need to tread very carefully around
Yeah.
favorite person for that.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things like that. So there's the allowance that I get from the Brit, and there is traveling. I would really love with the Brit. I love traveling. He's invited me to go with him on a trip, a hiking trip. And it's not something that I would ordinarily do or plan for myself, but it's like one hell of an awesome adventure. And to have someone say, hey, I'd love to do this with you. Can you come with me? I'll pay for everything. I'll pay for your gear. I'll pay for your airfare. It, you know, I mean, how often does that happen in life?
Mm.
And I spoke to favorite person about it, and he really freaked out. He was like, "No, no, can't. Please, you cannot do that to me yet. I'm not ready for that." So that's another
Mm.
major sensitivity at the moment. So the deal that favorite person and I came up with on this week of intense talks during our vacation was that I wouldn't bring up wanting to travel anywhere with the Brits for 3 months. And at the end of that time, I will ask favorite person about it again, just how he's feeling. Not to put pressure on him to say, yeah, now you can go, but I've asked him to work on it and try to get over whatever major insecurity is at the root of him not wanting me to do that.
How is he in terms of, like, I know that you talk about getting to the root and working on that, and I understand what you mean by that, and I know that you're very good at doing that with your own demons and your own insecurities. But how is
Mm.
favorite person when it comes to that kind of thing? Like, does he understand that? If you say, does he know what to do? Does he have the tools to go ahead and
Yeah,
excavate?
yeah, I think that he does. Sometimes we all get a little bit stuck. So things, might not move along at as fast a pace as I would like.
Mm.
But that's okay. I think that he does really observe himself, and he's very good about trying to come up with different perspectives, consciously choosing to look at something a different way, because looking at it in that different way is constructive and
Mm.
moves you forward and relieves anxiety. He's very good at that. Will that work? Will he be able to with this twist in life that I've thrown at him? I don't know, and I think that that's the reason I'm feeling so stressed out right now, because
Mm.
this is such a huge thing. I mean, I'm essentially asking if he will buy into us changing the foundational structure of our marriage, just a
Mm.
little thing like that.
Yeah. So if you could give someone advice on how to do this, say you're giving advice to someone else's favorite person, because I'm sure there's a
Okay.
lot of people out there, male or female, who are going like, yeah, I'm in the same position. I have this partner. They want something that is fundamentally different to what I have ever thought of wanting. How do I do that? How do I get over that kind of insecurity?
Oh man, I would say that you have to really, really examine yourself. And one of the things that the book I've read talks about at length is setting boundaries for yourself and knowing that you can control your own actions and you can make choices for yourself, but you cannot ever control another person, or, it's unethical to coerce them or try to manipulate them into doing what you want. So, what I would say is that you really have to do a lot of soul searching and determine whether or not you are capable of fully committing to what it is that your partner is asking from you. And if you think you can, if you think that there's a possibility, then give it a try and just talk about it the whole way through. But if it's violating a boundary for you in the sense that you will not be happy, you will fundamentally be unhappy about the situation. And the only reason that you would choose to stay in it is because in that moment your fear is greater than anything else. You're afraid of not being with your partner anymore. I mean, that's not a good reason to stay. In fact, that's the worst reason to stay.
We've been together some time, but then I let myself stray. I took the lead role in a tragedy, still hoping it doesn't end with you stabbing me.
But what if it's not fear? What if it's love? You love the person, and it's like someone like you who's got a lot of your life is bound up together inextricably with the person. You know, with kids or houses or whatever.
Well, if the overwhelming feeling that you have is love for that person, but you're not going to be happy with them because what they need to be happy violates one of your own boundaries, I think you're going to have to transition your relationship.
No one will ever love you like I do. No one will ever love you like I do. No one will ever love you like I do.
So I'm using a lot of jargon right now that I've recently learned. So I'm going to talk about the word transition for a second. One of the things that I've read in that book about polyamorous relationships is that a benefit that poly people seem to have over monogamous people. I mean, I suppose some monogamous people can do this, but for some reason it doesn't seem to happen very often, is that in a polyamorous relationship, people are a lot more open and much better at transitioning the relationship into something else. So, the scenario that we're generally framing, right? You're with a partner, the two of you really genuinely love each other. You love each other just, with your whole heart. But there's something that partner of yours needs that is violating a boundary, and you will not be happy in the relationship as it is with what that person is asking for. Then you need to figure out how the two of you can remain in each other's lives because you love each other and you need each other. But things are going to have to be different. You're going to have to transition into something else. You don't have to give it up completely. So I'll give you an example that I read about in the book. One of the authors is a guy by the name of Franklin, and he is actually still in a long-term relationship with a woman who he refers to as Amber. And they started out, falling in love the way normal people fall in love, very hot and heavy, lots of sex, so on and so forth. And because of the schooling, I think she was in a PhD program or something that Amber wanted to attend, she moved away from the area that they lived in. And so they didn't see each other that often. And because of the really intense school regime that she had, so many papers to write, so many classes, on, so much of her attention was focused on her schooling as opposed to her relationship with Franklin. Eventually, she asked him if they could transition their relationship from being a sexual one to just being emotionally intimate, because she was finding it too tiring and too draining in a sense to try and keep up the same kind of relationship that they'd had before she started this, years long schooling program that was just so intense. And Franklin, the author, talks about this and says how, that was really painful for him. And he loved the relationship the way it had been, but that he realized that he still wanted Amber in his life, and that if this is what she needed right then, he would figure out a way to make it work. So, and they did. And they're still together. I think they've been together for 20 years or something. They're still together now. Transitioning works, and I have to say that's something that sounds quite appealing to me. Not because I want anything to transition, so to say, between favorite person and I right now, at least not in that sense. I mean, I love living with him. I love being a married couple. I love being physical with him, so on and so forth. But just that idea that if you really truly love someone, you don't have to let them go completely just because something comes along and changes how the two of you are going to interact.
Yeah, no, I think that's the trickiest doorbell. We live on the top floor, so they always get impatient, so going dang, 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 and you just like, just give me 5 seconds to get down the stairs, will you?
That was our doorbell, by the way. My husband was the one clanging the keys and opening the door to go down and answer it. Crying kids, ringing doorbells. Just keeping it real here at Fable Gazers HQ.
I think that is such a big ask for so many people. You know, I mean, we're talking the way our minds work are quite fluid in the sense of being able to encompass these ideas and think them without freaking out about them too much, especially you, obviously. And I've always been someone who I love exploring new ideas without, I love bypassing the automatic reaction, which would be maybe fear, or well, I might not act on them, but I think that for a lot of people the whole idea of transitioning would just be too much, you know, or you know, it's just so there's so much fear involved in the idea of changing the status quo. And it's like there's this brilliant podcast called the Savage Lovecast with Dan Savage, who's, I mean, he's a relationship guru.
Yeah, no, I've never listened to his podcast, but I know Dan Savage. I've read some of his like blog posts, and I've heard him interviewed on other podcasts before. He's brilliant.
Yes, he is. And he's very much about sex positivity. If you listen to his podcast, you sort of realize how many people are dealing with issues like this and kind of trying to kind of navigate their way through. And he's almost like quite offhand about it and quite blasé now, because I mean, I suppose that's what he does every week, you know, is talk to people about these things. But for a lot of people, I think it's a very strange world.
My point is, the Savage Lovecast proves that this strange world is far more with us than we think. And we all probably know people, though they never talk about alternative arrangements, that are living their lives counter to the norm.
I think for me, it always comes back to the question of where is your motivation coming from? If your motivation for an interaction with your partner is coming from a place of fear or a place of insecurity, a place of lack, then the end result is not going to be a good one, even if it feels better in the moment. And choosing to trust, choosing to love, choosing to be grateful, I think that's a huge thing. So, you know, what's important to me is that I am in my relationship with favorite person because I'm choosing to be in this relationship. I'm not here because of some, you know, archaic obligation that I made. I'm not here because I'm afraid of being alone. I'm not here because, you know, I have insecurities. I'm here because I want to be. And if you can know that about your partner, if you feel that they are constantly choosing you and that they're coming from that place of positive emotion as opposed to something negative like fear, then, I mean, that's a wonderful thing. That's taken favorite person and I really, really far. The fact that I know he wants to be with me, and I believe he does know I want to be with him. Right now, he is afraid because of all of these new developments. He's afraid that that's changing or that it will change. And that's not how I feel. That's not what I want. So I'm hoping that with enough time, he'll see that. He'll recognize it and he'll go, okay, we can adapt to this. We can make it work, because ultimately I'm still getting what I want out of the situation and what I need out of the situation.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping.
Well, I think that's a good note to end on. I can't believe that, you know, you guys' relationship won't be able to weather this.
Yeah.
It's special.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like there's way more a chance of that than of us not being together.
Yeah.
I just like it's like my brain almost can't compute that. If that makes any sense.
No, that's the same with me. I can't compute you guys not being together. Your level of the way that you can talk to each other and be honest with each other, and also, you know, I just think that the trick for you guys will be to find the way that he will be happy in the situation.
Yeah, and I mean, and that is so important to me. That is critically important to me. I have faith in us. I definitely still want to be here. That's for sure. And as long as he wants me to be here, then I will be.
I don't think we have a working barometer for what is normal anymore, and if we did, what would it say about us? With everything being plunged into madness, what with certain presidential elections and Brexit, I'm starting to question the very basis of what I consider to be normal. It's become doubtful that we can trust those people who are meant to stand as role models for the status quo. Who are we to look to for guidance? In a world that no longer makes sense and morality and ethics are being traduced by those highest in the land, when mulligans are handed out right and left by religious leaders, what are we to cling to when it comes to knowing what is right to do in romantic and marital relationships? Personally, I'm inspired by how morally unambiguous Ruby considers herself. She has her own moral code. It's clear, and she's consistent with it. Frankly, that's a hell of a lot better than some of the high-profile examples we've had to put up with recently. Just saying. This podcast was produced and edited by me, Sarah Mae Tucson, with help from Beth Keane, Mike Scott, Geraldine Elliott, and Catherine Hoffmeyer. The music you've heard on this podcast comes from Danny Green's albums, Obituaries and Leish, as well as Kristen McClemon's album, The Wild Grips. Find out more about Leish by going to leishmusic.com, that's Laish music.com, and hear Kristen's work at kristenmcclement.com. You can email us here, fablegazers@gmail.com. On Twitter, we're at @fable_gazers. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing is very much appreciated, and it helps to keep us going. Names and details have been changed to protect the anonymity of those involved. This has been a Fable Gazers production.